really been so interesting how many demos we've been doing recently. We're just like, so many things you hear from bankers, and I think one of the things, that's why I wanted to talk to you. Some of the myths out there about implementing a CRM that come up all the time. It's so interesting. And one of the things that I've been hearing a lot is that it's too expensive to implement a CRM. And when I hear that, and they'll say to me, well, what do you think?
Right, it's always the cost. The CFO is going to have an issue with this.
Right, I got to worry about the cost, and I agree. And then cost is really important, but I think about the cost of not doing it.
Right.
is so important. And honestly, the efficiencies that are gained by implementing a tool like 360, to me, there's no business that I don't know how businesses are getting away with running their shop without a tool to manage, their workflows, their referrals, and selling services to customers. There's so many things we want to do, and without the right tools in place, I don't know how you're doing it. And I think the opposite is, what is the cost of not doing it to me?
Well, if you can really expand now and see where are we losing? What is it costing us to not put this in place?
That's right.
I think is a bigger view that people just don't necessarily have. They have that upfront of, it's a project, it's on the list, it's in the budget, and then everything moves off of that instead of really being able to step back. And they don't, because they don't know to.
That's right.
They've never seen the other side of it.
And you know what I thought was so interesting? I was talking to a banker last week, and I thought his statement was absolutely the best. He said, in light of where we've come out of this pandemic, and they immediately needed to implement the PPP loan program, and that he spun up on our pipeline system, immediately was able to feed in 504 bank prospects, and they could manage the PPP loans right through here. I thought, oh my gosh, I said, he just proved exactly what we talk about by saying, and he said, we would never have been able to use or to do this without using a tool like 360.
Well, and if you talk about the price and the time,
right?
So they didn't have to have time to think about, how are we doing this in a spreadsheet? How are we putting this in the process? They already had tools and a mindset and a process in place to go, this can look just like everything else we do, and we can set it up in 20 minutes, and we don't have to worry about it.
That's right. What do you hear? Like, have you heard anything outside of that? What's a myth you're hearing?
Right, I think part of the thing that I hear a lot is, especially when talking about price and efficiency, is how can something be efficient? If we're looking to gain efficiencies, how can something that is not part of the core be as efficient as a CRM is that is a part of the core? And so I think that there is a myth of integration.
Right.
And I have to do air quotes because there is so much of, it's integrated. So our core is already offering this. And so I think there's a part of that I'm really finding, having the opportunity to say, let's step back and talk about your core is your core. And there are other things that they do, but just because it is offered does not mean there's a seamless integration.
Right.
There's still a setup, there is still a process, there is still a feeding in. And I think to be able to look back and go, there are other systems that can do CRM better than what a core provider can offer, and that it can be just as seamless and efficient and integrated, if not more so. I think there is a myth that just because it's under the same name umbrella, that it all is seamless. And that's not the case. And I also think that there is a part of it that you think, well, they offer all of this with the core, so they've got a handle. And I think there's a missing piece of really being able to compare apples to apples of functionality. Yes, it may be under the same umbrella and have the same name, but there are really key functionalities that start to get missed.
Well, and I think also what happens with the core, I always position it too that, the core to me, you're tied in with the core, and they've developed CRM tools because it is a defensive strategy. They're trying to retain the business.
Right.
But the other thing is, how many banks and credit unions right now are expected to, do their due diligence on their core system every few years? So if you're tied into your core's,
tied together.
Business and then the CRM, and now you have to go out. We're a portable system. For us, we have such an experience working with every core system that for us, you decide to change your core system, we move with you.
Right.
The data moves with you.
There's a lot of freedom and flexibility in that.
Right.
That allows users to really go, what is best for us in all areas, not what is easier for us to stick with.
Right. Well, and it's funny, and there are so many things we hear. That's why I love talking about about this because, you hear things, but a lot of what we hear is the same.
Yep.
One of the other things is that, oh gosh, the implementation, it's just going to be so huge. We don't have the resources. We don't have the human resources to really implement a program like this. And I always feel like, number one, first off, this CRM implementation is not an IT implementation. Right. And that to me right there is what most bankers need to hear. This is a strategy that and a tool that's owned by your sales area, your marketing, your retail. So honestly, the role that your tech people are going to play, are they going to have a role in it? But they're not going to be paramount. Who is going to be most important in this are the people that are going to be really using working the system, working the process.
Understanding what employees need, understanding how to best support them.
Exactly. And you know what I think where I love, because we have a team of experts here, and because we've built the tool, we're bankers that understand this business. Right. So it's like we've done this, we know how to implement, and you're going to benefit from our expertise. I always say to myself, I did this. For years now as a banker, had to implement tools, and let's face it, I know I made mistakes when I first started out in doing this, so I've learned. But now, as really helping bankers do this, we've got the experience. You have such a resource here.
And for me, what I say whenever we come to this part of the conversation is I can have my sales hat on, but I've done this for 9 years in the trenches with you. I spent 9 years with banks and credit unions.
That's right.
Implementing and training and walking them through. And so to be able to come back and say, we get it, it's no small task, but it's not scary, and it doesn't have to be. Mm-hmm. And so to talk through what is important to us as a partner and as a company, and that's one of the things I'll say, we've got a great solution, and you're going to see that. But the thing that you don't see right now is the team that comes along with it, our expertise, our ability to train and to talk you through and to help you really, almost like on a consultative level to say, what are you doing and how can we accomplish that?
That's right.
And so we have, the industry expertise of the system and the knowledge and the language, but also to be able to say, we have done this. We've been implementing banks for 20 years, and we are a great help on this. We know what it looks like. Yeah.
Now, have you ever come across, and another myth to me has been kind of ROI?
Always.
Oh my gosh, we've got to prove an ROI.
What's a line item of an ROI? I
love ROI too, because all it is a meaningless number. And I know that we measure, and a lot of times we've got to present to the board of directors, and they want to see, and let's face it, it is a significant investment that you're making in a tool. However, the
monetarily and employee-wise.
That's right. But what I will always say to a banker is that, listen, you know what? I know I could give you a number, and the truth of the matter is, I could say to you today, I could probably come up with some spreadsheet that says, I guarantee you're going to get a 500% ROI on this investment. What I can tell you right now is we partner with a company like 360 View. We're not only going to provide you with a great tool that's built for bankers, but we're also going to provide you with the support and the implementation specialists that are going to help you make this project successful. The piece that you're going to be responsible for, that I can't manage, is the usage and the HR piece of it. Let's face it, do you have the right culture? Do you have the right training programs in place? Because this is more than just a tool. What I hope you're going to get here with 360 View is a tool that's going to support the culture and the process that you already have or have in place or are developing. That's where you're going to see the greatest success, and the ROI you're going to be able to see in the efficiencies and the growth that you see in your bank.
And I think that's the other part of it, right? We can give you a number, or I can show you another client's ROI. I can give you a white paper on what this looked like, but you're not going to do things exactly the same way they are. So to really step back and go, what are you going to do with it? And that can feel daunting, but again, to go, we can help you identify what you need to do with it. And because it is built in a scalable way, right, you're going to come out of the gate and use it, and then you're going to figure out, how do you need to grow? And those changes you're going to be able to make on your own internally. You're going to have those discussions, and the tools are available for you to make those pivots and for it to grow as you grow. And I think there's a part of it that, again, when you're talking so much on the front end, and it's budgeting and it's investment and it's ROI, but then to step back and go, but what are we gaining in time? What are we gaining in efficiency? What are we gaining in customer experience? What are we gaining in how our clients feel about us? What are we gaining in knocking out
The
that
unmeasurable, right.
low-hanging fruit that you are never again going to send a marketing piece to someone about an account they already have?
But where they're going to measure, they're going to see the growth. The long-term growth is going to be there, and I think that they're going to come back to us, and let's face it, our clients do, to tell us here's where we have exceeded, and here's what the results that we've seen. So what's another myth, Chelsea, that you hear?
Right. I don't know so much as it's a myth, but it's the question is, am I going to pay this much and only 5% is going to use it?
Mm-hmm.
Or are we going to license this and we're only going to use 5% of the system, or only 5% of our base is going to use it? And so I think that is often the positioning that comes in when we're talking about cost and we're looking at implementation and the time and whatnot. The barrier is, are we really going to use it, and enough of it, and are our employees really going to use it? And so I think that is one of the things to have to talk through often, to go, again, there is part of it, you out of the gate, yes, let's talk about you're only going to use a small piece of this out of the gate, and that's a good thing. Like, you will have the ability to put in time and build this and grow as you get used to it. We don't want to roll out a massive cultural shift undertaking. That never goes over well.
But the other piece of that is, and I think the usage piece, I think it is really important, and it really, you do hear that, and I'll put it back to the executive team, because as I see it, you are going to make a significant investment in this tool, and this has to be a change of the way everybody does business in the organization.
Full on board.
So it's top down. You know what? I remember at the bank that I came from, we would go into our executive meetings, and we really did all of our reporting, pipeline reporting, referral reporting, all came out of 360 View. And I will say, our president got to the point where you came in with a pipeline or a lending report that was in an Excel spreadsheet.
Yep.
We didn't even look at it. We didn't want to hear about it. I know it sounds cliche, but if it didn't happen in 360, it didn't happen. And that became kind of our mantra at the bank. And I love now when we've seen it.
Leadership setting expectations.
That's right.
That is the buy-in that says, here's the vision and the direction we are going. And so that really comes back to them to set that.
Yeah. So I think that management just has to be the part that drives this. And we hear a lot about, failures of it, and I push it back. I've said this to bankers, the success and the failure will be dependent upon you. Right. Buy-in at the executive level, to me, is probably one of the most important aspects. Absolutely. And I've had bankers say, gosh, can you help me sell my executive team on why we need this? And quite honestly, that's the hardest sell. And that I don't even want to be in that position. If your executive team doesn't understand why they need this, it's a hard sell.
Well, and that's really got to come back also to the people on the ground, the ones that are realizing the need.
That's right.
Turn around and say, here's what you don't see.
That's right.
Here's what we see that you're missing, and let us bring this to you and then give you the bigger picture.
Right. I have a pain. Help me solve the pain. And here's something that we can do. Well, anyway, I think it's really important to share with, people, because, and I know it's a lot, but I know that, we talk all the time about these myths and the fact that, it's the same things that we're hearing, and, gosh, we would just like to go out there and say, it's not that difficult. We can solve this for you.
Well, and there's something about it that I kind of like, right? You're getting these questions, or you're talking with a financial institution, and they are telling you their pain points, or they're telling you where they're struggling, and I often say, just so you know, you're not alone.
Right.
You're not the only one. This is so common, and so it's not just that your institution is struggling with referrals, or it's not just your institution is struggling with a price point or a culture shift, or this is common.
It's common. It's
and
across the industry.
And this is what we do every day.
That's
so
right.
Let us help you talk through that.
Yep. I love this conversation because we, what we love and we're so passionate about here is that we know this is not difficult.
Right.
And so when you hear somebody present you with an obstacle and you've seen it, well, we get excited, but we also know it's not difficult.
Right.
So it's great. And thanks for sitting and chatting with me about it.
Absolutely, I love it.
I love it.